Hey guys, I was just recording and editing a video, kind of a full-length thing that we're doing, and in it there is a section about meal planning, and it made me think of how little I actually talk about that in situations like this, because it's one of those things that you say, well, with flexible dieting, you just kind of eat whatever you want. And in truth, a lot of us need to know some of those foundational steps as to what is the best. Yes, I have flexibility, but what's going to help me reach my goals in the fastest manner, the best way, that kind of thing. So thought we'd go over a little bit of that, maybe start a little series here. I kind of start these series, and as I feel like it, I kind of bounce back and forth. So we're going to start one on meal planning. First of all, I would break this up into kind of two groups. First of all, there are protein, carbs, and fat, the macronutrients. And so at your meal times, you might consider different percentages of those, or different times where you might even just have one by itself, or leave one out, that kind of thing. There are different scenarios where that's appropriate. And besides the macronutrient ratios, there is simply meal timing and the structure, the format of your entire day. So let's start there a little bit. I mentioned, I thought, I do some of these in different places, so I don't know where I've mentioned what, but I have looked at, and I know the ISSN has done a little bit of a review and position statement on meal planning. And when you look at anything from 2 to 3 meals a day, all the way up to anything beyond 6, 7, 8, 10, there's just really no difference. So taking the same exact calorie amounts, spreading those out across those different meal scenarios, you're just not going to get much difference at all in any case, any context. So you really do have some parameters there, and I think we can make some good best judgments on those things, and so I'll talk about that. First of all, if you're going down to 2 meals a day, you're really in what I would classify kind of an intermittent fasting phase or state. And even though that might be okay for some people, certainly sedentary general population people, that can be a good way to lose weight. I know a lot of people who have done that. I think the more activity you throw in the mix, if you're training really hard, you're just not going to get away with that from an energy need perspective. You're just going to get way too hungry, and you're going to be catabolic too often. You're going to really be stimulating your metabolism, and so you need more meals than that. But the old, eat 3 or 6 meals a day every 3 hours, that kind of thing, I mean, that's just not that necessary. I think there are times you can almost use the best of both worlds, where you have a certain amount of time, like 4 or 5 hours between meals, where you're just not doing anything, where it's completely fine to not consume food. Then there are times when it's pre-workout, post-workout, that kind of thing, your metabolism's heightened, and you might need meals, 90 minutes, 120 minutes, that kind of thing. So those are the things to really consider. First of all, look at it just a little bit intuitively. When are you getting hungry? Are you using those meals for pre-workout, post-workout performance and recovery and so forth? And then what are those percentages going to be? So what I would say, first of all, look at those exact needs, primarily using your workouts as the most important or pivotal part of your day. So pre-workouts is where I know I want to fuel this workout. Yesterday was my heaviest deadlift of the week, and I knew, I'm going to have some carbs at that point. Matter of fact, because of the way it was situated in my day, I hadn't eaten for, I think, about 3 hours, so I even had some protein, scoop of protein powder, some carbs, waited about 30 minutes, and that's what I needed in that context. Other times, if I had eaten a pretty solid meal within 60 to 90 minutes, I might have just gone carbs alone. But I do prioritize that pre-workout meal as the place where I'm going to have the most impact fueling the training, and that's why I'm always going to kind of structure the day around that, or starting with that point. Post-workouts, you're always going to need some protein, or if you want to be recovering your best. If you're trying to lose body fat, that's a place where you can avoid carbs to keep fat burning extending beyond that workout period. If you eat protein alone, it really does arrest. I've seen a lot of studies showing it does decrease catabolism, increase anabolism just by having protein alone after your workout. If you do add carbs, it obviously is going to increase recovery because you're increasing insulin, growth hormone, just more carbs, glycogen in the muscle tissue and all that, but then you're going to reduce your amount of body fat burning post-workout. So that's where you get to decide if it's going to be protein alone or protein and carbs, depending on your goals. So pre and post workouts, that's where I've got my priority kind of sandwiching in, throughout the day. I'm definitely going to start there and planning my meals. Then I'm probably going to look at having what I call kind of one anchor meal a day, where I'm really kind of getting filled up. And usually for me at this point in my training, because I train in the mid-afternoon typically, that's going to be dinner. So I've got a small post-workout meal, then I've got a pretty large meal. I'm not a really big breakfast eater, but that can be a place where if you just feel like you really need to fill up, that can be a large meal for you where you've got protein and carbs. Then again, you get to decide based on my energy needs and based on my goals, where am I going to put more food and what type of food. In our book, 50 Days to Your Best Life, one of our books, we kind of break out meals by names, trying to quantify a little bit of where you're going to put those macronutrients. And one of those meals, called a recovery meal, is basically protein alone, or protein and a fibrous carb. So it could be just protein powder, or it could be chicken breast salad without any starchy carbs. And that's a place where you don't really necessarily have a lot of energy needs, but you obviously want some food. So that would be a place where you could be saving carbs for later, which would be your pre-workout, post-workout, or kind of an anchor meal. I also call a core meal to kind of match my description of the 5 phases of dieting. The longest phase of dieting I call the core phase, because that's where you're just grinding through the most body fat loss, and there's not a lot of dynamic change going on in terms of adjusting your macronutrient profile, that kind of thing. So in a core meal, it's basically just a starch and a protein, which I would think is typical. Probably more than half of your meals would fit that description. So for example, this morning I had a little egg white omelet with a little ground beef in it, some spinach, and had that on a piece of toast. So there's a little bit of starch and some protein. That would be kind of a core meal. And again, my training doesn't happen till a little bit later. Matter of fact, after I film this, I'm going to be training. So that was 7-8 hours ago. I just needed something to break my fast breakfast from evening, and so there's protein, a little starch. Then about 4 hours later, I had another meal that was pretty much the same. It was some chicken and a tortilla wrap, so kind of a sandwich. Again, just a little bit of a core meal. Then now I'm going to hit my pre-workout, which will be protein powder and some little bit more simple carbs. So I've got a couple oatmeal cookies. That way I've got that speed of glucose hitting my bloodstream and so forth. Post-workout will be a little protein, and then I'll go home for my anchor meal, which would be dinner, and that would be a full fibrous carb, starchy carb, protein, that kind of thing. So think of it in those two groups. What's your format going to be? Why and where do you need energy the most, or recovery, protein, that kind of thing? And then how much? What are those ratios going to be? One of the things I would like to mention in protein, there's been a lot of research happening just looking at, is it better to really titrate that protein in? I guess this research goes back a few years now. But are we supposed to get 20 to 25 grams every couple hours and keep those amino acids going? Or is there some adaptation? The liver amino acid pool is just getting too adapted to that, and periods of protein fasting can heighten our use of amino acids. That's actually been shown to be true. So I think the days of thinking we must eat every 6, 7, 8, or every couple hours, 6, 7, 8 times a day is just limited. I think more and more research is going to show that's not true. And as long as you're getting protein in at 3 or 4 times a day, 3 or 4 intervals, especially in and around those workouts, you're really not going to see much more of an anabolic environment than that. So that's where you can just decide where you're going to stick that protein throughout the day in your meal planning. So that at least gives us a foundation, and then we can get a little bit more specific. I know this will generate some questions, and so based on those, I'll definitely dig deeper into some other pockets of information. So thanks, guys, and hope it helped.